The ferry was late. Of course it was. I'd been sitting on my duffel bag for about 40 minutes, watching the fog roll in off the water, when I noticed him, sitting on a bench maybe 20 feet away, elbows on his knees, staring at his own hands like they'd done something to offend him. He was maybe mid-30s, the kind of tired that doesn't come from one bad night, but from a whole season of them. Hiking boots, a jacket that had seen better weather. A traveler, clearly. Also, clearly, not well. I noticed the way he shifted his weight, the careful, deliberate way he sat still. The way people sit still when moving hurts. I'm not the type to insert myself into strangers' lives. I really am not. But I'd just finished a rural health rotation. I had a full kit in my bag because I always have a full kit in my bag. Occupational habit. My friends call it a personality flaw. And something about the gray tinge around his mouth made me put down my coffee and walk over. "Hey," I said. "I'm sorry to bother you. I'm a nurse. You okay?" He looked up, dark eyes, the kind of exhausted that's almost peaceful. He almost smiled. "Define okay," he said. His name was Daniel. He'd been traveling for 3 weeks, national parks, back roads, the kind of trip you take when something in your life needs resetting. 2 days ago, he'd gotten a deep cut on his forearm from a fence wire. He'd cleaned it, he said. He'd bandaged it. He thought it was fine. It was not fine. I asked if I could look, and he pushed up his sleeve without hesitation. That particular kind of trust that strangers sometimes offer you when they're too tired to be guarded. The wound was about 4 centimeters long, closed with butterfly strips that had done their best, but the skin around it was warm, redder than it should be, and when I pressed gently at the edge, just the lightest pressure with 2 fingers, he winced. "How long has it felt warm like this?" I asked. "Since yesterday morning, maybe." "Any fever? Chills overnight?" He thought about it. "Yeah, actually, I thought it was just the cold." I took his temperature. I keep a small thermometer in a case in the front pocket of my kit, right next to the alcohol wipes, because of course I do. 101.4. Not alarming, but not nothing. The beginning of something that needed attention. I told him what I saw, plainly, without drama. Early signs of infection. Not dangerous yet, but the kind of thing that becomes dangerous if you let it ride another day on a ferry to nowhere. He needed antibiotics. He needed a doctor to look at this properly. And in the meantime, right now, on this dock, in this fog, he needed something to bring that fever down and something to help his body fight. He had ibuprofen in his bag, which was a start. I told him to take it with water, not dry, and to eat something first if he had anything, even crackers. "Fever is your immune system doing its job," I explained, "but when it climbs past 103, it stops being helpful and starts being a problem. Right now, his was working for him. We just needed to keep it from working too hard." He rummaged in his bag and produced a slightly crushed granola bar with the expression of a man who was deeply unimpressed with himself. "That counts," I said. He laughed, just a small one, but it changed his whole face. While he ate, I cleaned the wound again, properly this time with saline and fresh gauze, and redressed it. The ferry was still somewhere in the fog, apparently in no hurry. I had time. And there was something about the quality of the quiet on that dock, the water sounds, the muffled horns in the distance, the cold air that smelled like salt and rain, that made everything feel very still and close. "You do this often?" he asked. "Adopt injured strangers on ferry docks?" "Only on Tuesdays," I said. He had an injectable vitamin B complex in his bag. He'd been taking it for the trip, he said, something a doctor back home had suggested for energy. He asked if it was still a good idea to take it, given everything. I looked at the vial. It was fine. Intramuscular, standard formulation. And honestly, given that he'd been running on granola bars and adrenaline for 3 weeks, it wasn't a bad idea at all. "I can do it, if you want," I said. "Properly." He looked at me for a moment. "You carry syringes in your bag." "I told you I was a nurse." I thought that was a line. "It's a very unusual line," I said. He agreed. Of course he did. He was sitting on a dock with a mild fever and an infected arm. He wasn't exactly in a position to be skeptical about good fortune. Here's the thing about intramuscular injections that most people don't know. The needle is the least important part. What matters is everything that comes before it. I had him sit sideways on the bench, feet flat on the ground. The outer thigh is my preferred site when I'm working in the field. Easier to access than the deltoid, more forgiving, no need to adjust clothing awkwardly. I asked him to loosen the drawstring on his hiking pants, just enough to expose the outer thigh, the lateral aspect, roughly the middle third, away from the inner thigh and the knee. He did it without fuss, which told me he'd had injections before and knew the drill. I put on my gloves. There's a particular feeling to that, the snap of nitrile, the way your hands become slightly more deliberate, more formal, like a small ceremony. I cleaned the site with an alcohol swab in a slow outward spiral and let it dry. That part matters more than people think. Injecting through wet alcohol stings, and it also defeats the purpose. 15 seconds, I always count. "Take a slow breath," I said. "And when you breathe out, let your leg go completely soft, like you're about to fall asleep." He did. I could feel the muscle release under my fingers when I spread the skin. A slight tension, then nothing. That's what you're waiting for. That's the moment. The needle went in at a 90-degree angle, smooth and unhesitating. Hesitation is what causes pain, that half second of pressure before you commit. You don't press, you go. One clean motion, the full length of the needle, and then you aspirate. Pull back the plunger just slightly to check you haven't hit a vessel. Clear. Good. I press the plunger slowly, not fast, never fast with an oil-based or viscous solution, because the muscle needs time to accept it. You're a guest. You don't barge in. "You feel that?" I asked. "Pressure," he said. "Not bad." "Good. That's exactly right." I withdrew in one smooth pull, pressed a clean gauze pad over the site, and held it there for a moment. Just a moment. The fog had gotten thicker. Somewhere out on the water, a horn sounded, low and long, like something breathing. "You should still see a doctor today," I said, not for the first time. "The infection needs antibiotics, real ones, prescribed ones. When you get to the other side, find a walk-in clinic. Show them the wound, tell them it's been about 48 hours, tell them you have a low fever. They'll sort you out." "I will," he said. And he meant it, I could tell. Some people say it to get you to stop talking. He said it like a promise. I packed up my kit. The fairy had appeared out of the fog while I wasn't looking, a slow gray shape resolving into something solid. People around us were starting to gather their bags. He stood up carefully, tested his leg, nodded at me. "Thank you," he said. Just that, no flourish. "Take care of the arm," I said. I picked up my duffel and walked toward the dock ramp. I didn't look back. Not because I wasn't tempted, I was, a little, but because some moments